In every technological disruption in history, there were certain skills and processes that became obsolete. The people who made a living harnessing those skills and following those processes lost their job. You know what they did? They learned new skills, they learned new processes, and in every single technological disruption, more jobs were created than those that were lost. You just need to make a commitment that you are going to become an AI driven leader, and that is going to happen by using it once a day, every day, moving forward. I mean, when I look at the leaders that we work with in our community called the collective. So that these are all C-level leaders. None of them are technical, but they are committed to becoming AI driven leaders and building an AI driven organization.
Hey there, welcome to this episode of The Freedom Experience. I'm your host, Jean Moncrief. Now, my guest today is Geoff Woods. Geoff was the former chief growth officer at a $12 billion global company. And now he's the founder of an AI leadership consultancy and the author of The AI-Driven Leader. Basically, he's taking what he learned and applied in that business, in that $12 billion business, to help C-suite teams around the world change their relationship with AI, to go from outsourcing to it, to actually starting to lead with AI, to thinking about AI as a thought partner. Now, I've read loads of books on AI, consumed loads of content on AI, but Geoff's book hit me differently. It didn't just teach me how to use AI, it showed me how to think alongside AI. It really reshaped how I coach, how I lead, and how I make decisions in my own business. So, in this conversation, Geoff walks us through 3 shifts every leader needs to make right now. The first is to stop treating AI like this fancy intern. This isn't about better emails or faster to-do lists. Geoff shows you how to use AI as a thought partner to challenge your thinking and push your strategy forward. The second thing he shares is a CRIT or CRIT framework: context, role, interview, task. Most people prompt like amateurs, where CRIT helps you to get strategic, even visionary results. And Geoff will go into that in this episode. And then third, he gives you a daily habit that changes the game. Ask yourself, how can AI help me get this done? Simple question, massive shift. So if you're serious about leading in an AI-driven world, then this episode is basically your playbook. So let's get into it with Geoff. All right, Geoff, welcome to the show. Fantastic to have you on. Thank you for giving us some time and coming on here.
It's my pleasure, John.
So, just to frame things up and to set the sort of conversation, yeah, I thought I was working properly with AI, with ChatGPT. And then along comes your book, The AI-Driven Leader. And I suddenly realized, I felt like I was way off whack. I mean, I'm creating emails and creating documents and doing all those fantastic things. It was all going well and it's helping me move faster. But I just realized how much I was actually missing when I read your book. And I think it's one of the most important books I've read. We talked before we hit the record talking about 10x is better than 2x. And there's a couple of other books I've read in the past 12 months, but your book feels like one of those game changers right now. And I just think in terms of the teams I'm coaching, the folks that I work with, I wanted to have this conversation with you because I think the way you articulated things in the book and the way you think about how we should be interacting with AI is just like a game changer for leaders. So maybe give us a bit of background about what it is that you're doing.
Yeah. So, well, first, I appreciate that. I know every leader knows AI is the future, and they probably feel like they don't know where to start or what to do next. And deep down, they really fear that they're falling behind. And I have figured out that I have an ability to talk to the C-suite and make AI feel simple, real, and something that they can take action on immediately in a way that actually drives enterprise value. So this is, for me, it's not even about AI. It's about how do we build better leaders, better businesses, and better lives. And how I got to this, we have to actually go back to college. It was my senior year. I'm doing an internship, John, and right before graduation, I sit down with the CEO and I asked him what job he thought I should get after school. And he looks at me and he goes, "Geoff, you're asking the wrong question." You should be asking, what are the skills I can master that are so valuable, they'll serve me no matter where I go? Then go find jobs that will help you build those skills. I had no idea how much that conversation would define my life. First, best career advice I've ever received. Focus on the skills you need to acquire, not the job and trying to fit inside a box. And also, what I did not realize was that one of the most important skills that I would master was the ability to ask the right questions, which is what he modeled for me there. You fast forward, I had a sales career and eventually got into business ownership. I partnered with a guy named Gary Keller, who started Keller Williams, and he and his co-author Jay Papasan wrote a book called The One Thing. Very popular book. Probably a lot of the people listening to this have read it. They wanted to turn it into a company, but Gary's one thing was running Keller Williams. Jay's one thing was writing books with Gary. My one thing became the one thing. And so I had never been a CEO before, but they said, we will give you all our models and systems for scaling companies, which KW is a multi-billion dollar company. And he said, I'm going to give you everything. You got to learn it. You got to live it. And then you got to be able to teach it. So a lot of what I did was going into companies from growth to Fortune 500, driving strategic planning and execution. And at the core of this was the skill of asking really smart leaders the right questions to get them to narrow their focus on what matters most so that they can scale their company.
Yeah.
This became a superpower. And by 2022, I sold my interest in the business and ended up going in-house with a client called Jindal Steel. This is a global steel powerhouse out of India, 100,000 people around the world. I had been the coach to the chairman of the board, as well as his whole C-suite. And he asked me if I would step in as chief growth officer. My focus was very narrow: strategy, execution, people, and technology. I believed that these were the 4 drivers that would unlock enterprise value. Strategy was about working with every operating company to define the competitive advantage we wanted to build. Execution was making sure we had a focused business plan we stayed focused on.
Yeah.
People, I had this huge realization, John. The purpose of people in a company is to achieve the goals of the company. The goals of the company change every year, if not faster, but the job descriptions of the people do not.
They just stay static, right? They don't change.
So in our case, we have 100,000 talented people running really enthusiastically in completely different directions. Well, how do you realign a workforce of that size? You'd have to look to tech. And this is where I started to look to AI. It was December of 22 when I saw ChatGPT for the first time. And when I saw it, I saw the next skill. But I also had all these limiting beliefs of, I'm so busy, I'll get to this later. Or, you know what? Can I just hire a consultant to do it for me? Or you know what? I'll just delegate this to IT. They'll figure it out. But then I had that college mentor. Focus on mastering the skills that will be so valuable. They will serve you no matter where you go. And so I just made a commitment. I'm not going to delegate this. I'm going to lead this. And it's going to start by me becoming a practice leader of the technology, which is what I now call being an AI-driven leader. I'm just going to use this once a day. And as I started to use it, I realized pretty quickly I was asking myself all the wrong questions. I was asking, how do I use this to write a better email? And John, I wondered why it felt like a waste of time. But then I thought, what if it's not the tech? What if it's me? That's when I reflected and said, I've brought the most value to companies by asking leaders the right questions to get them to narrow their focus to what matters most to unlock enterprise value. Could I, instead of asking AI questions, could I get AI to interview me? That was the great unlock. I was at the chairman's house, one of my quarterly trips to India, and I'm showing him how I'm using this, not tactically, strategically. And he goes, this is incredible. And I go, I agree. It's the future. And he goes, I agree. And I looked at him, I said, I think we should drive it through the whole company. He goes, I agree. And I said, I think this is so important that you should own this as chairman of the board. And he goes, I disagree. How about you do it? One problem, John. I know nothing about AI. I don't have a technical bone in my body. I can't write a single line of code. Something I learned from Gary Keller, though, is anytime you're hitting a ceiling of achievement, you're missing a person.
Mm.
I found myself asking, how can I drive this through the company? Wrong question. Who can I get into relationship with that could enable me to drive this through the company? Better question. And that led to a partnership with Google. And I started going to their headquarters in Delhi every quarter, and I learned a lot about the tech. We started to drive it throughout the company. And that's when I realized that there was a bigger problem because everybody was focused on the tech, but it's not technology first, strategy second. It's strategy first, technology second. The tech is not the difference that makes the difference. It is you as a leader who wields it. No one was talking about the leader. And that felt like a calling for me. So January of 24, I resigned and said, I'm going to write a book about this. I'm going to build a company based on this. The AI-driven leader is now #1 in the world for its category. My company, AI Leadership, is just on a tear, helping C-level teams understand how they start leading the change instead of just delegating it to a consultant in a way that actually drives value. And during my time with Jindal Steel, their market cap grew from $750 million to $12 billion.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
I guess for the audience listening to this, like, Geoff, when you talk about focusing on building these skills, is this something that the CEO, the founder is needing to be doing, or is this something in the leadership team? Where does that start learning to build these skills start inside the organization for the folks listening?
I'll tell you what's happening, and then I'll tell you what I would suggest. What's happening is people are randomly adopting this. You have people that are just super excited about this. They're the innovators, early adopters on an adoption curve, and they are either using this with a sanctioned model that the company has approved and said this meets our security requirements, or they're going rogue and they're using their own. But I promise you it is being used inside your company, whether you like it or not. There was a study that came out from McKinsey in March. John, guess what the #1 determiner of ROI is for AI in a company?
I'm imagining that the CEO, at least the leadership team, getting involved in it and actually
the CEO's direct oversight of
yeah.
it. And that has been my stance from the beginning. I think long-term adoption, grassroots is fantastic, but this is going to change. According to Eric Schmidt, former CEO of Google, everything you know about how your company will operate will change within the next 5 years as a result of this technology. And by the way, he said that a year ago.
So where does it leave the folks who haven't made the decision to change?
Well, we'll get there. So when I heard that, I thought, okay, you're telling me there is a technology tidal wave that is coming, and it is literally going to change everything that I know about my business within 5 years. Does that feel like something that you delegate?
Hell no. But
the answer is no. The answer is no, because if you delegate it, you are actually abdicating your responsibility as a leader. And this is when I realized for myself, again, I'm not technical, but I don't need to be. And what if you didn't need to become technical? What if you didn't need to become an AI expert? What if you just needed to become an AI-driven leader who knew enough about how to use this so that you could cast a vision for the future? You could define your strategy for how you're going to win in an AI-driven world, and you could just lead the change. That is your job. You cannot delegate that. And if you choose to, that will likely be the thing that puts you out of business.
I think this is where the hesitation was coming from for me. The teams that I work with, probably 1 out of 10 of them are really able to cast, the CEO able to cast that kind of vision in the future. They can look down 10, 15 years from now and say, drive-by-wire is coming. We have a brake fluid business. We've got to change from hydraulic fluid to we need to evolve. Working with another crowd in London at the moment, and they're looking into the future and how do we evolve? But I feel like so many leaders are short-sighted, particularly CFOs, CEOs. think back to the cloud computing and not making the shift to kind of, for a security company looking after security in the cloud. No, they'll always be on premise or whatever. I feel like there's so many folks who've got to make this mind shift, but they just won't do it, and it's going to leave them. We're talking 4 years. 4 years.
And here's why. Imagine if your entire life you've only seen black and white.
Yeah.
And I ask you to describe color. You can't do it. And this is where it's not their fault. You can't cast a vision until you have seen enough. And this is where my realization was, if I could just show leaders how to go from 0 to 1, using this for themselves in a way that would actually matter, I could create what I call the light bulb moment. And all of a sudden they start to see color. And as you start to use it yourself, then all of a sudden when you look at your operations, for example, you have a new set of lenses on where you see ways that AI can bring value. And then you look at your product and your service offering and you can see how it could bring more value to customers. Then you start asking bigger questions like, what's the business that would put us out of business? And what would it look like if we were the one that actually built it first? What's our source of a sustainable, defensible, competitive advantage that if we were to cast that as our strategy and start to build that moat and fortify that moat, we would win in an AI-driven world. And based on that, how do we turn that into 3-year goals and pull that back into our business plan so that we can start to prioritize the small, simple things that if we do them now with AI is actually going to lead to enterprise value. This is the approach that when we have done this within companies, we're talking 7, 8, 9-figure impact in under 6 months.
Yeah, we were talking about 10 times is better than 2 times when we hit the record button, and you were talking about 10x being tiny compared to what could actually be achieved if you're doing this right.
Yeah. So let me make this real for people. Here's my fundamental premise. You are the thought leader. AI is your thought partner. You're in the driver's seat. It's in the passenger seat. If you want to make this a Google replacement, it will be your Google replacement. If you want this to be your assistant to help you write better emails, it will do that. But I want you to think about the return on investment you get there. I'm going to tell you those are 80% tasks that drive 20% of the value. They bring value, but it's low.
Yeah.
I'm here to encourage you to hold yourself to a higher standard. And this is where my whole thing is shifting people away from the 80% and toward the 20% that drives 80% of the results. Don't worry about the tactical, focus on strategy. What are the 20% priorities that could drive 80% of the results? And use AI as a thought partner there, meaning you don't ask it questions, you turn the tables and you have it interview you. Here's what that looks like. I have a framework for prompting called CRIT, context, role, interview, task. You should literally rewind the episode and write that down. This is the most important thing you can learn from this episode is CRIT, context, role, interview, task. This is my framework for how I write every prompt. I give AI lots of context about the situation. Role, this is where I ask AI to play a specific role. You are a aggressive, growth-minded board member with deep expertise in the CPG space. You have scaled a company from $100 million to $1 billion and had an exit, and you know what it's like to navigate a hostile board. Like you are literally architecting the perfect advisor for you for this specific use case. Interview. This is the game changer. Interview me. Ask me one question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain deeper context. Task. Your task is then to do whatever you want it to do. So you just mentioned 10x over 2x. I'll give you an example from this week, literally on Monday. So today's Friday, Monday, this week. I have a vision. I have a sense of where we're going to finish revenue wise this year. It's been incredible growth.
Awesome.
My
Great.
10-year vision is to 25x where I project we will finish this year in 10 years. That's big growth.
Yeah.
And I found myself asking, what if that were too small? Because I'm already starting to see things and strategies and levers we can deploy and pull that could get us there way faster, which means I need to raise my goals. So I found myself asking, what might an impossible goal be? Well, what if I added a zero? What if it wasn't 25x? What if it was 250x? And what if I really wanted to make this fun? And instead of it being 10 years, I wanted to make it 3. The moment I said 250x revenue in 3 years, I instantly felt sick to my stomach, which meant it was the right goal because it would require me to redefine who we are and who we can become. And this is the foundational premise of 10x over 2x. If you want to double the size of your business, you can keep doing 80% of what you currently do. You only have to change 20%. But if you want to 10x, you got to stop doing 80% of what you currently do, hold on to the core 20% that drives 80% of the value, and reinvest that 80% into higher levels of capability.
Yeah. Yeah.
So here's how I did this. I have built my own AI board. It is lonely at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is lonely at the top. I do not have a real board, and I got big goals, and I want to make a big impact in this world. So I don't want to navigate it alone. I went to AI at one point, and I told it what my 10-year goals were at the time. I gave it my annual business plan. I gave it our culture documents. I told it what I was aware were my strengths and weaknesses as a CEO. And then its role was to act as an expert in assembling boards that have the exact skills the CEO does not have that would be required to hit their 10-year vision. And I had it interview me, asking one question at a time, up to 5 questions to gain deeper context about me. And its task was to tell me the strengths and weaknesses I have that I was unaware of, that I should be aware of. And based on that, I said, great, now give me a list of the strengths and skills I would want to acquire if I were to assemble a real board. And it made a list. I didn't agree with all of it. I shunted it down to the ones that I agreed with. And I said, great, now I want you to go do research of famous business leaders that actually excel in these skills. And then I made a personality profile for every single one of them. Steve Jobs is on my AI board for vision, product design, and storytelling, but he is not allowed to give me advice on being a husband, a father, or a leader.
Makes sense, yeah.
Warren Buffett is on my board for long-term planning and risk mitigation. I created a profile, Jean, for myself 30 years in the future, so I can have a conversation with the man I want to become today.
So that's it.
I call it my future.
Pulling you toward where you want to be.
Bingo.
In the future.
I call it my future self.
This virtual board who's helping you pull you toward.
Yes.
Yeah.
And by the way, people are like, "What? How did you?" ChatGPT. ChatGPT. This is in ChatGPT.
Which we've all got.
Remember when I said that? Remember when I said that tech is not the difference that makes the difference? It's the leader who wields it.
Yeah.
Here's the difference between me and most people. I'm not focusing on the tactical. I'm focusing on the strategic. Creating an AI board, that is strategic. So the AI board was there. I went to the board and I wrote crit. Context. Here's my 10-year vision for the company. We want a 25x revenue from where we project we're going to finish by the end of this year. But I am already seeing things happen this year where I think we're going to hit that way faster. And I listed out the very specific things that I'm seeing so the board had that context. I now found myself asking, I want to set an impossible goal that would require me to reinvent who we are. It would require me to stop doing 80% of what we currently do, hold on to the core 20% that's going to drive 80% of the value, and reinvest 80% of our time and our resources in higher capability. Here's the things that I think that might be, but I don't want you to assume that those are the only things. Those are just the only things that I can see. And ultimately, I want a 250x revenue in the next 3 years. To me, it feels impossible, but I'm coming to you because I want you to help me see how to make that real. Roll, be the board. Interview me.
Yeah.
Ask me one question at a time, and I didn't give it a limit. As many questions as you want so that you can gain the context you need. Task, I want you to generate a plan that would actually have the sufficiency for us to 250x revenue in 3 years. The board turned the tables, and it started asking me, like it said, here's what I'm aware are the current product offerings. Here's the product offerings you don't see. Let's get brutal. Of these, which of these alone have the sole sufficiency to scale to that kind of revenue? That shunted it down to 2.
So it's coming back to those right questions again, right? Making sure you're
Bingo.
getting.
Yes.
So important.
My AI asked me that question. It's like, here's the things that you're currently doing. If you were brutally honest, which of these as a standalone product have the sufficiency to scale to that level? And then it asked questions about, let's just not kill the other ones off. Are any of these strategically valuable? And it asked all these questions, and it came back and it laid out a plan. And by the time I looked at that and went, oh, maybe I need to raise the goal again, because now it feels doable.
But to start with, you have to have that mindset that's almost an infinite kind of mindset, that you're not scared of sitting down and saying, okay, how could we 10x's, get the feedback? Actually, how could we 100x's or 25x's or whatever it is? But there has to be this kind of mindset that you have that infinite kind of thinking. I think that's a big challenge.
Here's what'll help you make this real. Think about all the books you've read in your life. 100, 500 books, 1,000 books.
Yeah, probably well over 1,000 books. Love reading.
Right. What percent, John, of that collective knowledge can you recall and apply this exact second?
I'm going to go with 1%. I thought about this morning, I'll be honest with you. I heard Shannon say 10%. I thought, there's no ways I could do 10. It's got to be about 1%, if I'm lucky.
And I'd say most leaders 0.1% if they're lucky.
I've reread a few things.
Right. But here's what I realized. We have been very successful based on our ability to recall and apply the minority of what we've learned, which is the minority of the information out there. These AI models so far have been trained on 200 to 500 million books worth of data. They can recall 100% of it in under a second. So this is where, think about, what if your ability to think strategically was the difference between growing your business or going out of business?
Yeah.
And what if your greatest threat to your business was not the competition, but it was how you were thinking?
Yeah. I think that is the biggest threat.
Why in the world would you go through navigating the thinking of your business alone when your thinking is inferior to what AI can do? But AI can't do it without you. You're the thought leader. It's the thought partner. But this is where this new synergy comes to fruition. As the thought leader, you say, I'm thinking about the goals for our business. I'm not going to do it alone. I'm going to pull AI in as a thought partner because I can tap into way more data and the greatest processing powerhouse we've seen in human history to harness that data with my leadership. That's the game changer.
Yeah, that is. But what's I know, and I've heard a lot of folks say this, we're going through one of the biggest changes you were talking about earlier that we've ever seen. And certainly we went through different revolutions over time. But there is this massive fear about job loss and what's going on. And I know we talk about new roles being created. Yes. It feels like if you don't keep up with what's going on at the moment, if you don't build those skills from CEO right down, you are in trouble. And
I agree with that.
you've really got to. This is a big big change, monumental.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah,
It's huge. And I found myself thinking, we've been here before. This is not the first time in human history that technology has disrupted things. And so I went back and I studied the past major technological disruptions: printing press, steam engine, assembly line, electricity, internet. Because Jean, I wanted to understand, what are the patterns that have remained timeless that we can learn from to guide our leadership? And here's what happened. First, we have to define what a job is. A job is just skills you apply and processes you follow. At one point, you didn't have the skills required to do your role right now with Small Giants, and you didn't know the processes to follow, but you did what you did as a human. You learned, you evolved, you grew. It's core to who we are. In every technological disruption in history, there were certain skills and processes that became obsolete. The people who made a living harnessing those skills and following those processes lost their job. You know what they did? They learned new skills, they learned new processes, and in every single technological disruption, more jobs were created than those that were lost. Now, I'm not sure if that's actually going to be the case here with AI, because when you start to look at agentic AI, I don't know. But here's what I also know. That's outside my control. So using that as a justification for inaction, I think is stupid.
love it. Yeah,
You gotta still get in the game and start to figure out, how do I harness this technology so you can be part of the class that is able to see color and is able to see the new opportunity and take advantage of those new jobs. But if you shackle yourself to the way things used to be and the world is moving forward, yes, you are going to have a tougher go. And this proved true throughout history. Those that resisted the technology, life got really, really tough until the pain got so high that they got in the game and learned new skills and learned to follow new processes. You will learn new skills. You will learn to follow new process. The question is, will you lead or will you be last?
or will you be forced into? Yeah. Are you going to lead this, or are you just going to be forced into doing it ultimately at the end?
That's right.
Yeah.
So, and trust me, I empathize with the people who have scare, fear, anxiety, because I used to be one of you.
Yeah.
I made my living asking leaders the right questions. And the moment I was able to get AI to ask the same questions I could ask, or better ones, honestly, rocked me to my core. Because I went, oh crap. But then I thought about that 10x over 2x. What if this wasn't the great disruptor?
Damn it. Sorry, Geoff. We'll cut this section out. I didn't even know whether. My bad. I know
where to pick it up. But then I thought, what if this wasn't the great disruptor? What if it was a great liberator? What if this technology was here, was happening for me, not to me? Pay attention to the questions that I was asking myself. I chose to ask empowering questions, because I could have said, how is this going to take my job? How is this going to make it so I can't provide for my family? You ask a question, you will be able to search for an answer. I chose not to ask the scarce questions. I chose to ask the abundance questions. And with that, I took a leap of faith that maybe this is a chance for me to stop doing 80% of what I've done, to hold on to my core 20% that makes me me, and to reinvest that 80% into higher skills. And maybe that will 10x my world. I had no idea that I would 10x in under a year when I did that.
But you've got to actually, you got to be willing to make that change. It's that willingness and the desire to actually make that change. And I think this is probably one of the most important times for everybody listening to this right now, is basically align yourself up.
Now let me make it super simple on how to start, because we know leaders know it's the future. They don't know where to start. They think they're falling behind. Here is your homework. If you do what I'm about to tell you, this will change your life literally in under 30 days. Do not let the simplicity of what I'm about to tell you undermine its significance. I have literally shown this to over 20,000 people in the last 6 months. I get 5 posts a day on LinkedIn from people I don't know tagging me, talking about how this changed their life. This thing works. Here's your homework. I want you to get 2 sticky notes and a Sharpie. 2 sticky notes and a Sharpie. Simple enough. On sticky note number 1, you write the question, how can AI help me do this? How can AI help me do this? On sticky note number 2, you write CRIT, context, role, interview, task. And for those of you who are listening, I am actually holding up these 2 sticky notes on my desk. I wrote the book and I have these 2 sticky notes on my desk. Why? It's tough to read the label when you're inside the box.
I got one of those on the monitor, the other one's going on.
Yeah. Every day I'm doing something the old way, relying on my own human processing power. And I look down and I see, how can AI help me do this? And I go, duh, Geoff. Well, what would that prompt even look like? Well, context, role, interview, task. Once a day, every day, for the next 30 days, write CRIT on something that matters. You will be playing at a massively different level.
Yeah. So I've been trying it, Geoff. I've got it on my monitor. I take a walk in the mornings and I have my conversation with ChatGPT. And like I was telling you when I started, I think I kind of get the context right. I get on and the friendly voices, hey, what do you want to talk about today? Do you want to have a conversation about whatever? And I put the context in. And as I said, recently stepped into the role of leading this Small Giants community. And I'm thinking about, how do we take it to be a more global community? I'm thinking about how do we 10x the size, not from a revenue standpoint, but from making a difference, from an impact perspective. How do we make more impact? And you challenged me when we started, don't think about 10, think about 25, or think about 100 times. So I get my context in, and I start thinking about the role. And I think, well, is this a conversation I'm having with a business owner who's kind of my ideal client target market? Is this from a sort of board level? Is this from a private equity? How am I picking that role? I think I'm
one, you're overthinking it.
Nah.
2, you're applying an artificial constraint. In that, what I heard is you thought it could only be 1. Why not say your role is to act as a person who has scaled communities 100x? You're also on my board, and you're really good at not just agreeing with me, but pushing my thinking and challenging me to think differently. And you have a background in private equity where you really look at how do we drive maximum value creation and enterprise value in a 5 to 7 year horizon. It doesn't have to be one person. You
Gotcha.
literally, you're making an ice cream sundae of an advisor. Well, I want a scoop of this, and I want a scoop of this, and I want some of these toppings. Like, that's what you do.
Love it. Okay. So get the role right. Give it the context.
And just like how if you're using voice to text or voice to voice, how you with context you just let it fly. Do the same thing with the role.
Okay. So we put our context together. Give it some background on what it is I'm working on. In my case, those things that I talked about, taking an existing community with a great foundation in place and thinking about how we make more impact in the world.
Yes.
How we 10x as community. I think about the role in terms of that kind of ice cream sundae, how I pile different advisors or thinkers or whatever in to ask me the questions, because ChatGPT is going to interview me. So then we get to the question about, the question. So I want you to interview me based on that role, but asking one question at a time. And I think this is key as well, because first few times around it, I think I missed that. And it was only after rereading your book that I asked one question at a time. I think this is really important for the listeners as well.
It's extremely important. And here's why. If you do not give it a limit of one question at a time, it will ask you all the questions at once. That's hard to answer. And what will happen is if you do one at a time, it'll ask if one, it starts to feel like a conversation. It's super fluid. Time just fades away and you just go deep. But when you give it an answer, what you're actually doing is you're giving it more context. It will dynamically ask a better follow-up question because it now has more context. So the quality of your result will go up. So interview me, ask me one question at a time, and then I give another limit up to 3 questions. 3, 4, or 5. 3 works 80% of the time. It gets like if you want down and dirty and fast, 3 questions because it will pull enough to get you there. 4 if I know I want it to go deeper. 5 if I want it to go really deep. Very rarely do I say give it unlimited, because what will happen is it will start to go down rabbit holes. It'll start to get far too granular, and you have to be really strong as a thought leader to guide it and to pull it back up to say, hey, you're going too tactical here. You're losing focus on what matters most. I want you focused over here. And to know, like, all right, you have enough context, deliver the task. So you really have to know how to lead it at that point. It's like the training wheels are off. So I would literally say, interview me, ask me 1 question at a time, up to 3 questions to gain deeper context. Just literally type that word for word.
Gotcha. And then we get
task.
Then task. So
what do you want it to do? And this is critical, because people, if you are not very clear and precise on what you want AI to do, you will judge it when it doesn't do what you want it to do. But it wasn't AI's fault. You underled it. And this is where, for me, this was like a huge mirror, John, because when I started using this, I became so incredibly clear on how things might be crystal clear in my head, but in my communication with my team, it would be as clear as mud. Hey, go do the thing. What thing? Where do we stand on that project?
Yeah.
What project? Right?
It's like it's
AI,
there, but
yeah,
in your head, yeah.
Bottom line, would it serve you for the first 30 days to just assume if AI is not working that it's your fault, not AI's, so that you go back and you look at your prompt and you make it better. Not to say that AI is not going to make mistakes, because it does. It hallucinates. It makes things up. Sometimes it freaks out, but I personally chose a highly accountable mindset of, if AI is not going to work, it's not AI's fault, it's my fault. And that forced me to get so purposeful on how I was architecting these prompts. Very valuable skill, extremely valuable skill.
Yeah. And I mean, just for the listeners again, you're listening to this and you think about, okay, where do I get started with this? I think first thing is read the book. And I know that you were talking about being able to, at the back of the book, there's a whole load of prompts, but I think there's a PDF that you do if you send in the receipt or something like that. I don't know if you're still doing that.
This book is written for leaders. So one, there are tons of stories and real prompts in the book that was very purposeful, because I wanted you to be able to apply it. There's a prompt library at the back of the book that summarizes every prompt. I even built an AI thought partner that there's a QR code in the book throughout that you can literally scan it. It will launch the thought partner and you can put that prompt in. The thought partner is trained on the book, so you can have a conversation with the thought partner about the book, and it will teach you how to implement the book.
There we go.
And then I went further. At the end of every chapter, there's an executive summary showing you this is the 20% that drives 80% of the value. You could just read that. And I even underlined all the most important things throughout the book as a design feature.
So if you're a busy entrepreneur, if you're a busy business owner, this is super easy.
I understand.
First of all, the book is a brilliant read, easy read. You can pick it up and just honestly just get into it and just read it. I think it was really well written. But on top of that, you've got everything else in there. Underline the important bits, QR codes to kind of bring up access to the AI that you've built to help you understand the book better. So that's the starting point. Where do we go next?
Yeah.
What's the next step? We kind of get the concept, and I guess
Two sticky notes and
get
a Sharpie.
those sticky notes on.
How can AI help me do this? And context, role, interview task. You just need to make a commitment that you are going to become an AI-driven leader, and that is going to happen by using it once a day, every day, moving forward. I mean, when I look at the leaders that we work with in our community called the collective. So that these are all C-level leaders. None of them are technical, but they are committed to becoming AI-driven leaders and building an AI-driven organization. And we guide them every step of the way and give them all the resources they need so they drive enterprise value. These guys come in and literally may have never used AI before. They, look, after 1 week, pull an executive meeting and say, we're going to be an AI-driven organization and I'm going to lead it. And one of the guys told me, he goes, yeah, my team said, what does that mean? He goes, I don't know, but I'm going to lead it anyways. Awesome.
Go.
Awesome. You don't have to know every single step. You just have to know that you're going to go there. And this is when I realized, what if your competitive advantage with AI wasn't knowing everything about AI? What if it was just surrounding yourself with the right people and being able to ask the right questions to tap into collective knowledge so that you were always ahead of the competition? And we have proved it out, and it is working. And we now have the world's largest network of these AI-driven leaders who aren't viewing this as an individual sport. Like, here's how I'm doing it in my company. They're driving it in their company, but then they're going and talking to hundreds of other C-level leaders and learning how they're driving it in their companies across industries. And they're pulling the best of the best of the best ideas and taking that back to their executive teams and going, let's make this real.
And there's massive value in that. I mean, it's just, and that network effect is unbelievable.
Remember when I very casually said 7, 8, 9-figure impact.
Yeah.
In under 6 months? I didn't make that up. I've watched it happen.
Yeah. And I think you're talking about creating that virtual board earlier. And I think we talk about surrounding ourselves with the level of people that we surround ourselves with makes all the difference in the world. And if you get into a community of people who have that open kind of mindset, that infinite mindset, who are really trying to push this thing to the edge and see what they can do, it's just
100%
going to put your business in a whole different league.
You expand what's possible. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been extremely humbled and just like it's been so deeply fulfilling to see people come into this thing, into the collective, with excitement, but also with fear. Like, it's heavy to wear the crown.
Yeah.
And when you're running your company and you know that this is going to be a great disruption potentially, and that you know that you're behind, which you are behind, by the way, I'm not going to sugarcoat that, you are behind. The future of your company rests on this. And you're not technical, you don't know how to code. This is uncomfortable. But to see literally, I'm talking in 30 days, people start making an impact, like dropping 6 figures to the bottom line in 30 days, like realigning their workforce, casting a new strategy, like just the stuff that they do that's so fast. And then they start teaching each other. I mean, I get to just be on the journey.
Yeah.
It's incredibly impactful.
And I mean, this isn't about pulling humans out of the organization. This is about how we enhance our humanity and how we enhance our leadership.
We interview every person that comes into the collective because the culture is super important.
Yeah.
There are people that have applied and said, yeah, I want to figure out how I can cut headcount to drive more profit. We don't take them. That is very small minded and short-term focused. If you had an asset that you could invest in, that if you put $1 in and you got $100 out or $1,000 out, you'd be asking, how many of those assets can I get? That's what your humans are. So cutting them is not the solution. Making them AI driven is. I mean, I'll give you a real world example. I hired a chief experience officer. She has no product experience, never been a chief product officer, but she knows people and she knows experience. But we have so many opportunities that we need a way to prioritize and really find product market fit. And she went to AI and she created a system for product market fit. Again, she has no background in creating product market fit, but she used AI. She wrote Crit and it came up with a system. She brought it to me and said, "What can you give me feedback on this?" And I said, "No." She said, "What do you mean no?" I said, I'm not an expert in product or product market fit, but you know who is? Eric Ries from the Lean Startup. Go back
Yeah.
to AI, ask it to act as Eric Ries and apply the Lean Startup methodology to your framework, and then have it interview you up to 5 questions. And its task is to tell you where your system is strong, where it's weak, and the top changes that it would have to make, and then to actually revise the system so that it would be bulletproof.
Which makes me think how important it is to be hiring the right people, like more than ever, because you
What
want
are the skills?
to.
What are the skills that will be valuable? And I'm going to tell you part of this, it's not about they have expertise in this area. It's that they can think strategically. They can solve problems. They can communicate, they can collaborate, and they can create. Those are the 5 human skills that I think really matter moving forward.
And a hunger to learn, that they just want to.
Hunger,
Yeah.
hunger, hunger. It is no longer learn a skill once, apply it forever. It is learning constantly, thriving continuously.
Education system's got to change, and that's a whole other conversation. But
Yeah,
I've
don't
got
open
one
that
more
can of
for you
worms.
before we podcast called Freedom Experience. What does freedom mean to Geoff?
The ability to do what you want, when you want, with who you want, for as long as you want.
Is that where you find yourself now?
Almost. Really, really close. Going into this year, which, by the way, just to give people context of how fast this has happened, February 8th of 24 was the day that I made a commitment to write a book and start a company before I knew what the book would be about or what the company would be about, and before I felt qualified to do either of them. But I made a commitment because I said, I know if I commit to doing this, it'll be a force mechanism to have me go so deep on research and so heavy on application that I would literally emerge like a phoenix as a global thought leader on AI. I went start to finish on the book in 5 months when it takes most authors 2 to 5 years.
Yeah.
I didn't even start the company until Q4 of 24. So everything that I'm telling you right now is literally 6 to 8 months of being in business. We have a full team. I am literally, one of the goals that I set for myself was that by the end of this year, the business would be able to run and scale independent of me. I'm literally almost there. In 6 to 8 months, we do a very decent size revenue already, and we are now advising some of the largest companies in the world. Everything that you hear out of my voice, what I need you to understand is most of this happened in the last year and a half.
Yeah.
You are grossly underestimating what's possible for you and your life. But the thing that I did is I recognized that you are you. You are not what you do. Every one of you has unique strengths that if you can really get clear on what those strengths are, that like that's your competitive advantage, your personal competitive advantage. And if you look at how do you use AI to turn those strengths into superpowers, that's where AI enhances you. It can't replace you. I have doubled down on my unique ability, what makes me me. And I've been relentless about shedding the things that fall below that standard, whether it's to people or to AI or to systems. Let's go.
Let's go. Geoff, your energy, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for the book that you've written. I mean, and the progress is unbelievable. I really am grateful for everything that you've done and for the time that you spent with us. Really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. And for people who are listening to this, definitely check out the AI Driven Leader. Like, you literally just get it for your team. Just
in the
make it a book
notes.
club.
Yeah, give it to the team.
I challenge you to find something else that will drive more enterprise value for you in a 90-day period than you and your team reading and applying that together. And our website is aileadership.com. You can learn about the collective there. I would strongly encourage you to get on the newsletter. Every week we share real use cases of how leaders are using this and give even the prompts that they are using. We know you know this is the future. We know you may not know where to start or what to do next. Our job is to make sure you know what to do at every single step so you create better leaders, a better business, and better lives.
Love it. We'll make sure everything's in the notes so they can get to it. So if you're listening, get into the notes, get onto the newsletter, pick up the book, and take a look at the collective. Thanks, Geoff.
Thank you, Sean.
All right, if this conversation lit a fire under you to get things done today, then write down these 2 sticky notes. Number 1, how can AI help me do this? And number 2, crit, context, role, interview, task. That simple daily habit will shift how you think, lead, and make decisions. Do what Geoff says and stick them on your computer or somewhere you can see them. Geoff's book, The AI-Driven Leader, is one of the most impactful books I've read on the subject of AI. So grab a copy for you, for your team, start a book club, start using AI where it matters most at the strategic level. All of the links in the show notes are down below, including Geoff's newsletter and the collective where leaders are sharing real-world use cases of prompts every single week. And if you found this valuable, then please subscribe to the show on YouTube, on your favorite podcast app. We've got more episodes coming your way in the future of great leaders, all about ownership and building a meaningful business. And if you subscribe, give us a comment, then that helps us to get to more people. And also, if you are interested in the Small Giants community or want to check out our upcoming virtual workshops where we go deep into topics like this, go deep into topics like AI, then hey, links are down below. Join us at one of those virtual events. Thanks for listening and see you next time.